Hey fellow Worldwares, it's Angry Turtle, and before we jump into this video I want to send huge thanks to my latest two Patreons, Walter Karifinson and Stefan Apitz. Thank you a lot for joining my Patreons, I truly appreciate this. And now for the video, we'll be talking about weak spot and tough spot for the enemies. But before we'll be doing any testing, let me eat Radix. This way I'm sure that my mutations are not affecting anything. And now, if I shoot him in the torso, I'm doing 10 damage. It's intentionally a weapon with very low damage. Okay, I need only one volunteer, 1 second. Okay, population of ghouls reduced to 1, and now we can go into the testing. If I shoot his torso, it's 10 damage. If I shoot his arm, it's 10 damage as well. Other arm, it's 10 damage as well. Leg is 10 damage. Other leg is 10 damage as well. And head is doing 19 damage. Then basically in this case, plus head is reporting yellow damage numbers. What is a common misconception, I will go into that yellow damage numbers is always good. It's actually not like that. And this is very common for most humanoids, that head is doing double damage. And this damage is applied after all the calculations. Then basically if I'm doing 10 damage on a torso, I'm doing 20 damage on the head. And in this case it was 19, that's the rounding issues, because I wasn't doing probably full 10 damage, then rounding issue, and I end up with 19. Then I was doing like knife and half for the torso. In this case, for the torso again, I'm doing 8 damage, and for the head I'm doing 16. You can see that in case of rat stacks, it's working exactly the same, and it's for both heads is 16. For the legs is 8. And there is no more body parts, there are just legs and torso and 2 heads. But there is a reason I'm making this video. Basically, it's not always the case. Okay, this is quite an angry Deathclaw, but I hope we'll be able to see the damage numbers. Then basically, in his case, if I shoot him in the head, I can target your head, not tail, not leg. Okay, if I shoot him in the head, then I'm doing 6 damage. If then I shoot him in, let's say, arm, I'm doing 6 damage as well. Then there is no difference. And for the head it was a yellow number, what some people think that yellow number means good. But in this game yellow number means only that you hit the head, and there is no other meaning. And next, if I shoot the leg, it's 6 damage as well. If I shoot the tail, it's just 3 damage. Then tail is not a good option, it's 3 damage for tail. And Deathclaw is exactly one of the examples of typical enemies with tough spot, like in this case tail, and weak spot, like in his case belly. I already managed to shoot once while I keep firing, but let's try to get not the body, not the tail, belly. You see, it's a 12 damage. When the body is just 6, and when the tail is just 3 damage. Then it's a perfect representative how the tough spot and weak spot works. Okay, we'll give him a break now. Down. Okay, he's on the break. It's a perfect example with tough spot and weak spot. And you would expect that yellow numbers actually indicate a weak spot, but you cannot be farther from the truth. It just indicates that you hit the head, what is pretty pointless in a lot of enemies. In case of a lot of enemies, hitting the head doesn't mean we are doing good. And in case of a Deathclaw, we need to hit belly. And now we have one of the most deadly enemies, Sis. My Radix expired. Okay, Radix again, and on the eye we have now 11 damage. On the arm we have 9 damage, then you can see it's like around 20-25% bonus on Sis, then much smaller than on other enemies. Mid arm is the same, it's 9, other arm is 9 as well. and combat inhibitor is a tricky spot to hit, but we can get it after shooting couple times. Just need some stuff. You can see it's 18. Then in case of combat inhibitor, we have double damage. But apart from combat inhibitor, we have bonus damage, but only 25% versus ice. And there is no particular tough spot. There is just everything for 9 damage, double damage for combat inhibitor. For the thruster it's 18. Then we have double damage for the thruster, double damage for combat inhibitor, around 20-25% for ice, and everything else is just regular damage. Now we have a super mutant in here. Super mutant is a humanoid, which means that we'll get 16 for head, and all other parts will be 8, which means head has a double damage bonus. Or other parts doesn't have any tough spot, doesn't have any weak spots apart from the head. And now we're in Watoga, where we have the most misleading enemy of them all. Like, now, on the torso I have 15 damage, on the head I have 5 damage. Head is only 1/3 of the damage from the torso. Then left arm is 15 the same, other arm is 15 as well, legs are 15, other leg is 15 as well. This one was quite weak. We need to another candidate to find another candidate. This is 26, then it will be different damage. There is level 14. We already tested legs, and combat inhibitor is 15 damage as well. 15 damage basically on everything, and on the head we have just 5. We have 1/3 when hitting head, and everything else is 100% damage. Then this is the enemy without a weak spot and with a tough spot. His head is a tough spot, there is no weak spot, and it's his health bar and health he's dropping correspond with the damage numbers. Oh, this one is 3-star legendary. Good that I checked those crickets. I will totally miss on that legendary. We'll do just a couple more enemies, and of course if you guys want to test more, feel free to use the same technique and test more than just those that I'm showing in this video, but I'm trying to show the most interesting one. Like Myrlux. Yeah, unfortunately this all ran together. I was forced to kill the kings, and now we have soft shell Myrlux. That's the one that I want to show you. And let's start with a torso shot. It's a 10 damage, but then we have a shell, and shell is only 3 damage. Then it's only 30% of our damage going versus shell. Like arms is only 5, then we have 50% reduction. On legs we have 10, then we have full damage. And torso we have 10, and then we have a headshot, 19 damage. Then in this case, you can clearly see that there are 2 tough spots. You have shell, that is the tougher of the 2 tough spots, and then his arms are pretty armored as well. You have half of the damage. On the legs and torso you have full damage, and on the head you had double damage. Then enemies are very different from each other. It's not like everything is the same. And yellow damage sometimes is very misleading, because all it indicates it's just the headshot. You're doing headshot, you have yellow damage. Have nothing to do with actual weak spot. And now we have the big Myrlux Mama. And for the big Myrlux Mama, for the head we are doing 8 damage, and those are yellow numbers. For the spouts, we are doing 8 damage. For the shell we are doing just 2 damage, then it's like 25% of our normal damage only. For the arms we are doing 4 damage. For the legs we are doing 8 damage, then it's much better. For the legs we are doing full damage. Arms half of the damage. And torso we have half of the damage. That's one of the examples when actually on the torso you do not have any extra damage. You're doing half on the torso, and only shooting her legs actually give you the full damage. And head it's 8 damage, the same like legs, then it's not a weak spot, it's just a normal spot. Plus you have spouts that you would think it will be a weak spot, but it's just 8 damage, then it's a normal spot again. then Myrtle Queen does not have a weak spot, but her normal spot is already pretty hard to hit, or other spots are pretty tanky. Let's go back to robots for a moment. Like Ibot, it doesn't really matter when you hit him, the weakest possible enemy you hit him, he's dead. And now the interesting robot, Assaultrons. In case of the Assaultron, body shot is doing 8 damage. Headshot is doing only 3 damage. It's another robot that will try to trick you into hitting his head when it's actually the tough spot. The arms will do 8 damage. Another arm will do 8 damage as well. Legs will do 8 damage. Now the combat inhibitor, it's doing only 8 damage. Then there is no bonus for combat inhibitor. Then there is another enemy, and it's important because Imposter Ship Squatch is one of those enemies that are really tough. There is no weak spot, everything is 8 damage, and head is actually a tough spot when you are doing like 1/3 of the damage, doing 3 instead of 8 damage. And for the grand finale, let's summon some Scourge Beast. For the torso, we are doing 8 damage, and for the head, we are doing 12 damage. This is one of the enemies that do have a weak spot, but it's only 50% bonus. It's not 100% like in case of humanoids and some other enemies. It's only 50% bonus. And apart from that, the wings are normal spot, the legs are normal spot, then it's basically head as a weak spot, no tough spot, and weak spot is only plus 50% damage. Oh, we have a Mega Sloth. That will be a bonus round. In case of Mega Sloth, we have 12 damage on arms. I'm out of AP, then I will shoot like that. 12 damage for legs, 12 damage for torso, and 15 damage on the head. Then head is a slight boost to your damage, not too much at all. Similar situation to the Scourge Beast, but even smaller bonus for the headshot. And only headshot is a weak spot, no tough spots. And that is everything for this video. I hope it was somehow helpful, especially for the new players that do not know about this weird yellow damage mechanics that basically indicates a headshot, and it's totally meaningless because non-humanoids enemies quite often have weak spots somewhere else, and like I showcase in case of robots, it's very often a tough spot, then you do not want to hit a head. And headshot is actually a bad thing if you fight Assaultrons or Protectrons. And as always, thank you a lot for watching, and see you guys in the next one.